me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational Perspective.
I'm gonna be fully transparent and say my heart is really heavy. And part of the reason that my heart is heavy is because I've been doing a lot of research on a personal level around the economic cycle we're currently in. With inflation and listening to a lot of economic experts, the Warren Buffetts, Ray Dalios, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been making a lot of, and by the way, just be clear, the topic today is the 4 steps to reinventing your life. And it's not about money. But I'm going to tie this in a moment. But my heart is heavy because I've been looking at the current economic cycle. Inflation on the rise, interest rates on the rise, and on a very personal level, I'm doing this for myself, right, for my family, to begin thinking about where do we move cash, because cash is losing value. At a very fast rate. And by the way, I'm not saying this to scare you, and hopefully if you don't know, now you're aware. But as I'm making different moves, it changes how I also see the world. So when I'm out and about and I'm looking at our community and I'm looking at how we're moving, I get sad. Because when I think long term and I think about where we're going collectively, most of us haven't changed a thing. And I don't even think many of us are aware. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of us think we're cash rich from the PPPs and the stimulus and the money that's come in. And we're cash rich at a time where cash is quickly being devalued. And I don't even think we don't get this. And by the way, I'm bringing this up because there was a point in my life where I was navigating with complete blinders on financially. And it wasn't until I began to really work on myself that my eyes came open, not just financially, but in terms of my health, in terms of my relationships, in terms of my career. What I'm going to talk about today has huge implications on our lives and who we intend to be. And in many ways, what we will suffer, what we won't suffer, what we will have to endure, what we won't have to endure, the blessings that come into our lives. Let's just talk about blessings. This idea of blessings are often earned. I think sometimes we think of blessings as this miraculous, magical concept that just because I say I'm blessed, I'm blessed. And blessings come from who you be, how you show up, your integrity, the actions you choose to take, the actions you choose not to take, all the way down to your own personal development. And this is one of the reasons I believe the best investment you can ever make is in yourself, because it opens up the door for additional blessings. Those additional blessings simply come from new levels of self-awareness, new levels of knowing oneself. So mistakes you would have made, things you would have done, places you would have gone, people you would have consorted with, because of your new level of awareness You actually invite blessings into your life because somewhere you said, no, that's not the right person for me. No, that doesn't align with me. And the reason you can say that so clearly, or I don't eat that, or no, I don't think that's the job I'm going to choose. They're paying more, but I can see that would stress me. And so now you're making decisions because you are more connected to yourself in a way that actually benefits you and opens the doors for blessings. This is, it's not magic. It's very systematic. The same way we talk about racism being systematic, right? Blessings are systematic as well. And it has a lot to do with who you be and how you show up and your personal integrity. But most importantly, the work that you do on yourself. Just around my own personal development. And you talk about reinventing yourself. I want to be clear that when you have these kind of conversations, I think sometimes people may listen to the radio, they may watch the stream, and they'll say, well, you've always kind of had it figured out, or I'm sure you grew up a particular type of way. And that's just not the case. It's not the case. And I shared before, I came from a family where we had one breadwinner, my father. My father was grossing at the time, and again, this is the 80s, early 90s, but was grossing at the time between $50,000 and $60,000 a year for a family of 8 people, including himself. It's not a lot of money. So I didn't come from wealth. As a matter of fact, there are a few people on the stream right now who know me. My cousin just joined. He knows this. He can vouch for this. Neither of us came from wealth. We came from good families. We came from solid homes, but we didn't come from wealth. And there was a lot to be desired in terms of our own development based on what our parents knew, right? Our parents had come from broken homes. And so they were doing the best that they could. And so for me, when I hit my late teens, I was in a lot of turmoil. I left home at 17, went and got my own place on the west side of Chicago, struggled a lot. And to make ends meet, I picked up all types of odd and end jobs. I did things I'm not even proud of, to make ends meet. I did what I had to do to make sure I had the cash in my pocket to get by because I had this pride or this ego. I'm not going back home. Not happening. And so got an opportunity to play basketball. Thank God for that. That kind of shifted some things. Lost that opportunity fairly quickly due to grades and just not doing the work. Not doing the work. And in many ways, not doing the work because I was otherwise focused and otherwise involved. My mind just wasn't there. Now, I remember 18, 19 years old, going into my 20s, my mother would always ask me, what are you going to do? And that was it's probably the worst question she could ask me because I had no idea. No idea. So I had my future in front of me. And it's I don't know. So I had this bright idea. There was a friend of the family who was a chemical engineer, and she was making great money. She seemed to be the only person that I knew who had money, right? And so I did fairly well in high school and science and mathematics, and I said, I'll be an engineer. It was all about money at that point. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the idea of purpose and pursuing our purpose is because on a very personal level, I understand that pursuing money gets you nowhere. I understand on a very personal level because it was only a matter of a year and a half, 2 years or so pursuing that as a career where I ran out of steam. I I didn't like it. Got kicked out of college, came back home, lived with my parents, which is the last place I wanted to be. And in many ways, I felt like a complete failure. And it was this conversation that I'm having with you today that began to change my life. And the conversation is, the better we get to know ourselves, the better we begin, the more we begin to investigate who it is that we are on a very honest level, that is where we begin to experience growth. And I learned that from a mentor who introduced me to purpose, and a mentor that introduced me to living with intention. But before he ever began to go down that path, he would say what I felt the meanest things to me. And but here's the thing, he wasn't being mean. I think about my son, because my son will sometimes, when I correct him or redirect him, like, "You're being mean, Daddy." But man, look, you don't even understand what mean is, okay? You have no clue what mean is, because you had two loving parents. Like, "You're being mean, Daddy." Like, the fact that you can even say that to me proves that I'm not mean, because I couldn't say that to my parents. Y'all know what I mean, right? So, anyway, this mentor, he began to tell me things like, "Hey, you have a significant lack of focus." Like, wait, what? You have a significant lack of focus. Where you spend your time? And I didn't want to be truthful at times, but when he told me, he was like, you don't have to tell me the truth. I already know, based on the output, where you spend your time. I can look at you. I can look at how you dress. I can look at how much money you have in your pocket. And I can tell that you spend either a significant amount of time watching television or playing video games. Like, you're completely disconnected from yourself. And I can tell that based on the conversation. I remember him, when he would say those things to me, I felt like he was being unreasonable and mean. And then he would make comments like, he would say things to me like, "I bet right now you wish you were watching The Cosby Show instead of talking to me." I'm like, what? Why would you say that? But he was telling the truth. Because there are many times I would kind of be in my own head while I was receiving what was gold, like actual gold. And I'm grateful that I was able to glean just some of it before he passed away. So now, the thing that he gave me that I built on was this concept of purpose, this concept of knowing oneself. But more importantly, the thing he really pushed in me, he would often say, "Linal, you don't have to be honest with me. But if you're going to experience any level of success, you have to be honest with yourself." He used to say that all the time. And I really didn't know, 23 years old, 22 years old, 23, you don't really understand what that means, right? You're like, all right, man. Like, I used to feel very uncomfortable in these conversations. Like, you don't have to be honest with me. Like, the consequences are fairly low. Like, I could share things with you, I could teach you, I could support you in ways that if you were honest with me, I could help you in a different way. But more importantly, you need to be honest with yourself. I never forgot that. And if there's anything that has helped me reinvent my life and reinvent who I am, it is being honest with myself. Now, that's not even the first step. We're going to spend some time, okay? It's part of the first step, but it's not the first step. But I opened up with this concept of what's going on right now economically. Because if we just take that one piece and we ask ourselves, are you being honest with yourself? One of the things I learned about people in particular is when you begin to talk about something that they think they know, but they really don't know, that they'll expose that they don't know because they start talking about what they don't know as if they're an expert, because they haven't even been honest with themselves to say, let's just use the current situation right now with inflation. They haven't been honest with themselves to say, I really don't know what's going on. So when you begin, if you begin having a conversation with someone, like Ide's in the studio, let's say Ide and I are having a conversation. Ide, I'm sure you've experienced this before. Like you're a production, video, audio expert. And I'm sure you've talked to someone who doesn't have the skill that you have. And you're like, yeah, so I use this software and I do this. They like, yeah. Have you ever experienced that? And you they don't know what they're talking about. And then you might ask one question like, oh, okay, so, how have you rendered this or how do you frame that? And they'd be like, well, you know how it goes. And you kind of like, okay, yeah, you don't know nothing, right? You don't even know how to talk the language, right? Yeah. Now, the reason this person doesn't realize how foolish they look when they're perpetrating knowledge is because they haven't practiced honesty with themselves. And so because they're willing to deceive themselves, they believe that they can deceive other people. And I'm not even talking about horrible deceit. I'm talking about deceit like I know what you're talking about deceit. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, and then you, right. And the person talking to you is like, I'm wasting my time. You have no idea. Where am I going with this? I'm afraid that many of us are doing this in some of the most vulnerable areas of our lives where we haven't admitted that I don't know. And then when people who do know, who could pour into us, come to us, we're perpetrating as if we know. And so we're not even able to gain the knowledge. We're not even able to get the gift. Whenever I have underlying insecurities, that insecurity becomes like that exposure of that insecurity becomes a deep fear. I really want you all to listen to me because I can't even go into the 4 steps for reinventing ourselves until in some ways we're open. And so when I have insecurities, my deepest fear, one of my deepest fears is that someone will find out that I haven't arrived in this area of my life. And so that fear puts around me this self-defense. And this self-defense is almost automatic. It doesn't even matter who the person is. Tony Robbins is considered one of the top coaches in the world, right? Tony Robbins could be standing in front of you. And if he begins to in some way impede on this insecurity, you will act like you will do that automatic thing like, yeah, right. Yeah. Like it's because you're afraid of exposure. Now, we're going to talk about fear towards the end of the show. But fear is nothing more than an interpretation of the worst things that can happen. For instance, let's go back to a Tony Robbins example. If Tony finds out that I really am this way, that by the way, he already knows. This is the thing that like a really good life coach, y'all don't know. Like folks talk to me. I had it happen yesterday. I was telling my wife, this gentleman at the restaurant knew who I was. I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this guy. I'm like, interesting. You know, you're talking to somebody and they can act like, by the way, I met 2 people at the restaurant, so you don't know who you are. And we're like, you Linal Harris? You Linal Harris? But, like, my job is to listen, and language will give a person away. And so folks will talk to you and then act like yeah, I led him to believe what I wanted him to believe, and I'm looking at you. I'm looking right through you. Like I see, this is what I do for a living. So a Tony Robbins, like, so this insecurity you have that you're trying to cover up, not only do I see it, but by the way, anybody else who's astute or has some level of discernment, they see it too. They see it too. So then you would think that when help comes, you would say, man, let me just surrender. But that's not how fear works, right? Fear creates this interpretation, and then you have your self-defense around it. And again, we're talking about the deep insecurity. You have the self-defense around it. And because as human beings, we're like wired to go for feeling good, I would prefer, and really hear me out here, I would prefer to feel good in this conversation with somebody who can transform my life than to actually receive something that might in some ways be emotionally heavy. I don't want to say emotionally devastating because it's not. Just emotionally heavy. Like, it could be disappointing to hear from them, hey, you need to handle that. Like, that could be disappointing. It could create a gap of awareness that now you have to deal with. But the beauty of awareness is now you know there's a gap. Like, it's so clear. And you can do something about it. Many of us are so invested in our comfort. We're so invested in our comfort and feeling good in the present moment as best as we can, right? Because anytime real life happens or real life starts to hit me, I take another sip. Anytime real life begins to hit me or I really begin to look at my real circumstance and I have to be with that, I take another smoke. Anytime real life begins to, kind of come in on me and I see my real circumstance, like I don't have much money in the bank, I don't like where I live, I don't really appreciate what's going on, and there's work that I need to do to transform this, but instead of being with that because it doesn't feel good, I turn on the television and I need to laugh, and I completely space out. And then isn't it interesting how the television addict will shake their head at the alcoholic? Oh, that's horrible. I shouldn't drink so much. Isn't it interesting how the alcoholic will look at the weed head and go, these weed heads out here need to stop it. They're smoking their brains away. Isn't it interesting how we judge one another when really the focus should be on me? Like, the focus should be on where am I doing that in my life? Where am I taking a sip, right? What's my escape? Or where am I taking a puff in my life? Like I'm looking at the brother, my heart goes out to him. I don't know what he's trying to escape, but where am I escaping? So I had to set the premise before we go into reinventing ourselves, because one of the things that happens, folks, I know it all too well because, man, I can remember first being introduced to my coach. And this is what I did. Well, Linal, okay, in order for coaching to work, you have to be completely open and honest and share. Everything's confidential. But then I was trying to get my coach to like me. Like, yeah, man, everything's great. And of course, a trained coach, a good certified coach is listening to your language and you're telling on yourself. And then they ask questions. That's what I do. I'll ask a question. They'll be like, yeah, I'm really winning in my health and well-being right now. Oh, great. Tell me about, give me an example of a win. And it's not really a win. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, okay. So I just take a note, hiding something in health. And tell me about your relationship. Hey, this is one of the things I get from most married people I start working with because they're not open yet, right? I'm like, anything that needs to happen in your relationship? Oh, my relationship is perfect. I'm like, oh, is Pollyannish about relationship? Like, your relationship is perfect? That's a dead giveaway. That is not, right? What relationship is perfect? I would never get on the radio and say, Pam and I's relationship is perfect. Because there's always something to work on for one person. Like, there's always something for me to work on. I'm not perfect. And then there's always something for her to work on. So then if it's two of us together, there's always something to work on. Always. But your relationship's perfect? That's interesting. And so we don't even see these things. And by the way, people will defend themselves. We'll defend ourselves. What do you mean? Ain't nothing. My relationship is perfect. Let me start here. This is as much for me as it is for you all, because reinvention is an ongoing process. Every time you go to a new level, there's another level. There's another level available to you. Now, before I do that, I want to share a story about a client. Because I think when we talk about reinventing ourselves, sometimes people are like, well, you don't understand my life. You don't really get, Linal, what's going on for me. And I want you to understand that I do. So I believe we do this masterclass at the end of every year, goal-setting masterclass. And one particular year, towards the end of the masterclass, I began to help people frame out their goals in front of the audience. And this is pre-2020, and so we were live. If I'm not mistaken, I believe we were at the Illinois Institute of Technology. And 200-plus people in the audience. And a young lady comes down, and she said, she basically says, and at this point I have framed out maybe two people's goals, and she saw this, and she said, all right, you ready for this challenge? And what I love about how she showed up was her honesty. And again, this is the first, matter of fact, I should just make honesty the first step to reinventing your life. But the first step is knowing who you are, which requires honesty. It requires honesty. So she came down to the front of the room. I was on the stage, and she took the mic, and she began to share where she would like to be. Because in the goal-setting process, you set the goal, you set the vision. And so she said, what I would like to create next year is a complete transformation of my health, a complete transformation of my marriage, a complete transformation of my financial situation, and to grow spiritually. I want work in all four pillars. And then she began to go into details. I can't sleep without sleeping pills. She's like, you can see that I'm overweight. Like, very, very honest, very clear. My relationship with my husband is in shambles. We barely communicate. We can't communicate. When we try to communicate, it ends in an argument. I'm completely lost in terms of what I should be doing professionally. I quit my job, and I would like to begin working as an entrepreneur and generating money in line with my purpose. And spiritually, I feel disconnected. Can you help me? And I asked her, I said, it's not a matter of whether I can help you. It's a matter of whether or not you believe that if you follow this goal-setting process, that you can, and you're committed to it, you can change your life. She said, I believe that. I've heard how you've done it for other people. She shared how I had helped her sister. Her sister had to come out. She's like, I saw my sister transform. I want the same thing. I said, okay. And by the way, folks, this is not me. It's a psychological process, right? Coaching, it works. Ontological coaching works because this is the one scientific method that's proven to change behavior in adults. And so she began to work. She joined the coaching group and joined Slay Your Goals as a member and began to do the work. No, she did not change. She didn't join Slay Your Goals. She joined the coaching group. And so in the coaching group, we began to work through these things. Long story short, this woman today is supporting other women in transforming their health and their bodies. She is a physical trainer. Is that what you call them? A trainer, right? Completely transformed her body. Has basically been in competitions like bodybuilding competitions. Okay, this is someone who came to the front like self-identifying as overweight. Okay. No longer needs medications to sleep. Transformed her relationship with her family and her husband. Is living aligned with her purpose as an entrepreneur and doing what it is that she loves. And has created a very clear and strong spiritual connection with the Creator. Now, one of the resources I give anyone that's in my coaching groups is a book that is titled Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. It's by Chogyam Trungpa. I'll put it in the Facebook feed. By the way, we're streaming live on Facebook at Coach Linal Harris, if you want to see that. I've been getting emails from you all. Can you please share the resources? And so I wrote them down, taking feedback. Linal, what book was that? I'm like, I got you. So I'm putting it down right now. Okay. So this is one of the resources. I want to read from chapter 6 of this book. I just want to read one little stanza to you. And I'm doing this right before the break because I really want us to think about this. Again, we're being honest with ourselves. Quote, when you experience the goodness of being alive, you can respect who and what you are. Now, let's just stop there. It's not the whole quote. When you experience the goodness of being alive, you can respect who and what you are. Now, first, do you see the gift of your life as a gift? Like, do you really understand the gift of life? Like, do you really get it? Do you really understand, like, this gift? Like, you are alive right now, breathing and listening and comprehending. Like, do you really understand how beautiful that is? Do you really get that? See, because when you really get that, something like a spark, like, takes place in the spirit, like connection happens. I believe some of us, we've had, and I get it, we've had such tough lives that we have a lack of appreciation for life. And if you're like, Linal, I get it, I'm not talking to you, just stick with me. But there's somebody out there right now who is alive, who has been spiritually stripped by trauma. And you don't feel like you can enjoy life anymore. And I just want you to know, if you can take a deep breath, you can be healed and you can experience the goodness of life. And when you begin to experience the goodness of life, you can respect who and what you are. Doesn't matter if other people didn't respect you. Doesn't matter if other people trampled you. Like, what matters is if in this moment you can respect who and what you are. I am alive. I am a child of God. That's the beginning. And then the author goes on to say, when you experience the goodness of being alive, you can respect who and what you are. You need not, listen to me, You need not be intimidated by lots of bills to pay, diapers to change, food to cook, or papers to be filed. Fundamentally, in spite of all those responsibilities, you begin to feel that it is a worthwhile situation to be a human being, to be alive, and not afraid of death. That's a big one. See, because some of us, we're alive, barely, and then afraid to die. Like you ain't even fully alive. Let me be very clear with you. There's something about being fully alive that allows you to embrace the possibility of death. Because I'm living. So if this is cut short, no regret. Man, did I live. Thank you for the opportunity. But I believe the fear of death is there because most of us know that are afraid of death, that we've left so much on the table. We've left so much potential on the table. We've left so much there that to see death coming around the corner just is an absolutely unbearable thing because I know I left something out. I know I was supposed to do something that I didn't do. I never reached my full potential. And that freaks me out. But what's really happening is your spirit is unsettled because it didn't get a chance to fulfill its mission. That's what you're feeling. So, are you being honest with yourself? Like, think about this. Like, when you are fully alive, you could be drowning in debt. You could be overwhelmed by children, family, people to cook for, work to do. But in spite of those responsibilities, you begin to feel that it's still worthwhile to be alive and not afraid of death. Because when you become spiritually connected and you understand there's a reason for you being here, you just know that I just need to get through this sludge so I can get to the other side and be who it is I intend to be. This is why it's so important to be honest with ourselves. Because if we start with a certain level of honesty, then all of a sudden we begin to see for ourselves what it is that I need to recreate. You know what? I don't listen that well to my wife. I don't even know how to listen. I need to recreate that. You know what? I'm not healthy. I tell people, we just had the situation in our family where a loved one was like, we healthy, but they're in the hospital. But we healthy. I don't understand what's happening. We healthy. It's like a different level of denial. But we're so healthy. No, look at the result. You're not. Like we will lie to ourselves all the way to the grave. You ever wonder, I was watching this video about people smoke. And it's because they don't believe in the consequences because the consequences don't hit immediately. So that's why they smoke. We'll lie to ourselves. This don't hurt me. Nothing's happened. I run 4 miles a day. Without really like, hey, man, the data says it. Like, see, the thing is, the reason you don't believe the data is because you don't believe yourself. Like, you haven't really come to terms, honestly, with who you are. And so the only way to tap into your creative capacity is to first understand that creation doesn't happen outside of you. Most folks are broken on the inside talking about, but I want to create millions. It don't work like that. And as a matter of fact, the people who do create millions, like the athletes who are broken on the inside who do create millions, don't keep it. I can start going down the names to prove it. I don't have time for that. I'll Google it. We know. Y'all know. And so if I'm broken on the inside, then everything that I think I can create on the outside is going to fall apart. The first step to creation, people want to manifest this. I want to manifest this into my life. No, manifest new character. Manifest new health. Manifest purpose. Manifest a new spiritual connection. Because then that's the beginning of manifesting outside of you. When you learn how to manifest within yourself, now I can manifest outside of me. Now I can reach people. We live in a world where you have people who want to transform other people's lives without having experienced personal transformation. Be careful who you're listening to, including me.
Any one of these things is better or worse. I think that we use drugs or alcohol or certain situations and say that's better or better than the other one. But at the end of the day, a person who sits around and plays with their money and their finances as an escape of their reality is just as bad as a person who smokes weed. So I think there has to be a balance in all of these things that we do, but there are some absolute. And I would add this.
Real quick before you go to what you're going to add. I just want to put one little piece in, Art. When we say just as bad, that indicates some level of judgment. And I think that's what in many ways hinders us from looking at ourselves. Consider that it's not bad. It just is. And it's something for me to take a look at. There's reasons for this. Most alcoholics come from where they saw it growing up. Does that make them bad? Or does that mean that they just happen to grow up in undesirable or unfortunate circumstances? And so I'm just saying that to notice because we cast judgment. I think we've learned this, many of us. I mean, I used to do it. And I just, just for the listeners, I really love what you're saying, and I didn't want that to take away or disempower.
No,
someone.
You're absolutely correct, because when I speak with my daughter, I don't use the word bad. I always use the word choices.
There we go. I like that.
When you use the word choices, you can determine in your life these choices, and these choices dictate the direction you're going to go in. So you're absolutely correct. And sometimes I move when I'm dealing with my daughter, I deal from a different level because I don't want to use the word bad or good when I talk to her because I use that sensitivity, and I have to practice on using that form of sensitivity when I'm dealing in general.
And here's the reason why, Art, because what you said was really good. And then someone who's dealing with it, when you label it bad, you lose them.
Absolutely. That is absolutely, that is correct.
So one of the practices I give to clients is this practice, is mirror work, where you look in the mirror and you actually go through stages. And the first stage might be looking at yourself for 2 minutes. And when I say mirror work, like you get out the shower and you look at yourself, right? No makeup on, ladies, for the men, same thing. And you be with yourself. One of the things I told the Facebook group is many of us, we're so in denial about who we are that we barely look at ourselves. There's nobody in your house and you covering up. You covering up for yourself because you don't really want to be with what is so. And one of the things that self-honesty does is it creates a level of awareness that reveals the gap. And the gap is the level of what you may say of personal dissatisfaction. And again, not that anything's bad or anything's wrong, but the personal level, like, oh man, I could grow. There's room for improvement. And that is what's so. And many of us, we're overwhelmed just by the growth that we need, and so we ignore it. And this is what I mean by, one, being honest with yourself, but this is the beauty of mirror work. Now, here's the other reason mirror work is so important. If you've never done this, I really challenge you to take some time and do it. We talk about self-love, self-care. Mirror work is self-love, right? Now, I took Sunday. Today is Sunday's self-love, right? Self-love Sundays or something is what people call it. Do some mirror work. Like if you got some time away from the family, you say, you know what? Instead, I'm gonna go up to the bedroom, lock the door. I want nobody to come in, and do some mirror work. You'd be surprised what comes up. It's difficult because it drives a new level of awareness. And what I told the Facebook audience over the break is the first part is, do you really love yourself? Do you love yourself as you are? Do you see yourself as a gift? Do you see yourself as a child of God? Because if you can't, while you're doing that mirror work, that's the first place to work. Because if you don't love yourself, then how are you going to transform yourself? Somebody put here, I'm looking at the comments on Facebook. They like, so smoking weed bad? What about taking meds? See, this is why we got to be very careful with judgment, because someone will have a medicine cabinet full of pills. And by the way, the justification is, well, the doctor gave it to me. And look down on the alcoholic, look down on the weed head, right? Or just the person who's smoking marijuana, whatever it might be, and filling your body with chemicals that are far worse, that are tearing your kidneys apart. And this is like, let me just say this. Whenever you have room to judge somebody else, you got a lot of work to do. As soon as if I ever catch myself judging somebody else, I'd be like, well, now what you doing, man? Like, I know, like, that's an opening. That's an opening. I got work to do. Because all judgment is, let me be very clear, okay? All judgment, when I'm judging someone else, and this is even for leaders and pastors who are listening, when you're casting judgment on someone else, all you're doing is deflecting. And most of the time, the thing that upsets you the most when you're casting judgment on is the thing you need to work on the most. It's a psychologically proven fact that most of us are triggered the most by what we cannot be within ourselves. Somebody coming after you is because they cannot be with that in themselves. Got to be careful, man. Got to be careful. There's only one judge. And that's the Creator himself. None of us have the power to judge. Not one. I'm so righteous. I think this is what Art was talking about, because this is the danger of religion. Religion can be very good in terms of the rituals and routines that it can create that empowers a person's life. There's no question. But if I don't follow those routines, I'm outside of your religion, what people will do is they'll go, see, you're not spiritual enough, or you're not going to my God's heaven. Like, how can you say that? Like, you can't. How do you even know that? Like, I should be so focused on my journey that if I do feel someone's missing, I'm just like, if they're missing something, reveal it to them. If they're missing something, because I could be the one missing. I think this is the whole problem with Muslims and Christians. Like, everybody think they right. But if I'm a Christian and I'm only concerned about my walk and my spirituality, and then the brother comes in and says, Assalamu alaikum, he's a Muslim, I'm like, blessings to you too, brother, because we both on the journey. And whatever I can gain from you for my journey, I'm willing with love. We get so caught up in, I got it. Got what? Because whatever you got could be slipping out your fingers in that very moment if you're not focused on yourself. Again, self-honesty. I'm a creator. I'm a child of God. Stop letting, if I'm a creator, if you're a creator, stop letting your past define you. That means you get to define yourself through the creator. Stop letting what your family said define you. Stop letting that broken relationship a decade ago where he said those nasty things to you define you. Stop letting what your parents said to you define you, what your foster parents said to you define you, what your teacher said to you define you. I was watching something on YouTube, not YouTube, it was Instagram. They had Kate Middleton, and she is, according to this particular newscast, the epitome of beauty. And then they even had metrics, right? Because her nose is just so, and this. And see, the problem is, like, I look at it and I laugh, right? It's like, are you kidding me? Like, Kate Middleton is the, I'm happy Will like her. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sorry, she wouldn't get a shot. I like what I got, right? But we'll look at that and we'll let the media define us. Oh, that's beauty. Oh, I need to lighten my skin. I need to straighten my hair. Like, stop letting this stuff define you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Nobody can set a spectrum on beauty. What? We believe these folks, though. The Creator Almighty is the only one who can define you. Not a human having a spiritual experience. I'm a spirit having a human experience. And see, going back to what I read earlier, when I begin to realize that, that's when the door is open. That's when the daily task, like the heaviness or the weight, begins to dissolve. Like, oh, wait a second. This is just, so if I'm having financial issues right now, this is just part of my human experience because I'm a spirit. And then if I'm a spirit, I can tap into the spirit through the power of the Almighty Creator, because we're all connected to His supreme creative capacity, to transform my situation once I first transform myself. Black folks say, I got soul. Nah. You are a soul. Like, we need to transform that. Not I got soul, I am a soul. What you got is body. So, we are creators, and we use words and language to create. When I was at St. Sabina, I started giving examples, right? Because one of the things, like, we don't even realize some of the things that we say and think. And when you look at what's happening around you, whatever your circumstance, whatever your situation, I need you to consider that you created that. Like, this is a part, like, if you got a lot of bills and you're buried in debt right now, you created that. You did that. Like, if your health is poor and you're struggling in your body right now, like, you just got to get present to the fact that you created that. You did that. Now, here's the reason that's important, because when you begin to really get present to the fact that you did that, you also get present to the fact that you can undo that. But if you're not willing to admit that you created that, consider that you won't be able to create your way out of it. And see, the problem is we call ourselves, or the words that we use are so powerful. I was sharing with the Saints of Binder community. Like, my coach some years ago gave me a practice. And the practice was, Linal, I want you to be very thoughtful about what it is that you say, both verbally and mentally. Just pay very close attention over the next week. And when they gave me the practice, I'm like, oh, I'm good with this. I'll take the practice, but I don't think I really need it. I know how powerful words are. I know this. I know how. I mean, this is what I teach my clients. I know this. But I took the practice. It wasn't like 24 hours later. I remember like it was yesterday. I'm walking out the house. I'm going down the back stairs to the garage. And I saw something in the yard that was broken. And you know what I said? If it ain't one thing, it's another. Those are creative words. You all get that? And when I said it, I said, oh, man, whoa, did I just say that? Like, because we get hardwired. See, this is why we got to be so careful what we watch, what we listen to, because these things come in, they become our norm, and what we don't realize is that what becomes our norm, we begin to perpetuate in our speech, and it begins to create things around us. Because when I say that, it's not one thing, it's another. I'm actually introducing the other piece of calamity into my life. We're creating these things. So then if I walk to the garage and the car won't start, it's like, well, you just said it. You just said it. Like, you did that. We don't understand how powerful we are. Girl, I'm telling you, these bills are killing me. And then you wonder why you're under such stress. Well, stress kills, and you actually are introducing that into your life by your words. These idle words. Like, see, when you get present to the fact that you are a creator, now all of a sudden, my wife and I, we're constantly checking each other, right? She'll be like, Linal, you're a creator. You're right. Sometimes I'm like, I don't like that. Like, especially when, she said at that time, husbands, y'all know what I mean. Like, she'll say that right at that time. I'm like, I know she right. Ooh, I want to say something, but she right. Ooh, Jesus. Woo! And I know I do it to her, too. Honey, you're a creator. We know how to just put those zingers in there, right? But it's true. It's true. And this is how we have to look at this thing. All right, so one of the practices here, begin to really notice your words, notice your language. What we call ourselves is what we will be. People, you'll hear somebody say, I'm so stupid. Like, do you understand the gravity of that? Do you really get what you like? This whole idea of magic and curse and spells, if there's anyone that can cast a spell on you, it's you. What did you just say? Like, you got to take that back. See, we got to begin understanding these things. Like, this is what kindergarten should be. Like, my son right now, he'll say something. I'm like, no, don't say that. Like, because he has a spirit. He has creative capacity. Even at 4 years old. Like, no, hey, change that. Say this. Like, teaching him how to speak to himself. Oh, I can't get this. I don't know, Daddy. No, you can get it. You do it. Like, my wife will say, Legend, touch your brain. Say, I can do this. I can do this. Like, he's up. But we're teaching him, aligning him so he understands his creative capacity at the age of 4. Now, if you're talking about knowing ourselves, right? So I'm knowing myself, I'm being honest with myself. Then I also have to know my story. This is incredibly important. As soon as I saw that in my notes, know your story, I looked at the time and said, this is what we gonna be. All right, so Know my story. I'm going to stick right here. Let me talk to my people right quick. I know a lot of people listen, and I love you all for it. I just want to talk to the people that look like me right now. Many of us are operating in a story that we were born into, that not only our parents operated underneath, but our grandparents were victims to as sharecroppers. Their parents were victim to as slaves. Their parents were victim to as captives. And this story is insidious because it gets into the spirit. In many ways, it arrests your creative ability. Because if you're black, you're not as smart as the rest of them, quote unquote. If you're black, you're not as beautiful as the rest of them. If you're black, you can't be as successful as the rest of them. If you're, and this is a story that, by the way, see, when I say it out loud, it pricks the spirit. But for many of us, this is a story that's running behind the scenes. And it's arresting your creative capacity. It's a story. It's a story. It's not true. Somebody created this. Gomez, what's his last name? Ferraza, Portuguese cat. In the 1450s, he introduced blackness. He's the one who introduced blackness as inferior. He wrote it down in a story that then was sold by the Portuguese. The Portuguese king commissioned this, right? Why would the Portuguese king commission this? He commissioned it because they were already capturing Africans off the shores of West Africa, and they didn't want an international problem. So if we're capturing people and forcing them into slavery, and our other European neighbors don't know about this, but it's creating an economic boom for our country, we need to create a narrative that actually justifies what it is that we're doing and maybe even encourages them to do the same. So they created a story. And the story is that based on your skin color, based on all these things, you are inferior. Now, those of us who are learned and understand know that it was our ancestors that introduced mathematics. It was our ancestors that introduced medicine. It was our ancestors that introduced writing. It was our ancestors that taught the Greeks what the Europeans know. We know that. But even in knowing that, this insidious silent story can get into your spirit and arrest you because you know it, but you don't feel it when you walk out into the street. You know it, but you don't feel it or experience it when you go into the workplace. Every time you say something in a meeting and everybody look at you like, huh? That story is reinforced. And see, what happens is you got to begin understanding and knowing your own story. You got to know what you believe and what you don't believe, because once you begin to understand what you believe, that's when you can begin rewriting it. I shared with a client this past week that one of the reasons I look at our history the way that I do is because it's part of the way that I transform my personal story. It's because when I can transform my personal story, then all of a sudden the color of my skin becomes that thing I lean on. This is why I'm so intelligent. This is why I'm so connected. Like, you can completely change the story. This is why I'm able to transform lives like nobody else. This is why I've been given a gift. Maybe everybody else is just jealous. Maybe the story came because they were jealous. Maybe the story came because of greed. Maybe the story came, but that ain't my story. But see, in the beginning, you got to know. You got to know what the story is. What are you dealing with? See, my story hasn't always been like this. There was a time, even when I was a corporate executive, I remember walking into a room, being one of the only people in the room that was quote unquote black. And all of a sudden, I got nervous to speak. Why am I here? What do you mean? Why am I? Now I'm like, why were you not there? Right? But back then, it was like my story was a little different. It's like, oh man, what are they going to think about me? You know, okay, what if I say something wrong? And so then that story that we've grown up in, that's pervasive, that has been taught to us from the time we went into kindergarten all the way to through college, that was reinforced in college by professors, is playing in the back of your mind, and you wonder why you can't get any professional traction. You wonder why you don't love yourself the way you should love yourself. You wonder why, we look at it like, man, ain't no good black men. Like, oh, that's your story? Then there will be no good black men. Sisters are just difficult. Oh, that's your story? Then sisters are just going to be difficult. See, we got to understand the stories that we're telling ourselves and that we're operating in and that we're living in, because you basically live and create within that story. Everything is story based. We're narrative. We're narrative focused as human beings. Everything is a story. So then what story are you telling yourselves? You talking about reinventing yourself? You need to know your story. Some of us have a story right now. See, I will go approach her, but every time I try to approach a woman, they disrespect me. They don't speak kindly to me. They don't like me. That's your story that, by the way, you've made factual based on previous interpretations. And until you change the story, it will always be that way. It will always be that way. Because if you walk up with that story playing, that's energy. That person can feel that energy. They take that energy and give it right back to you and deliver on your story. Well, I'd like to be married, but men don't like big girls. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. I'm a man. I know that. That's a lie. But if that's your story, that's what it's going to be. If that's what you believe, that's what it's going to be. You could blow this off all you want, man. You transform your story. All of us have seen things that don't make sense. How'd she get him? How did he get her? Right? Because it doesn't align with the stories that we tell. Am I right? Where's the lie? But see, he got her because he was running a different story. Oh, she's beautiful, and that's what I deserve. I deserve beauty. I can take care of beauty. I'm all about beauty. What's up, sister? I'm just saying, you look good, but you look even better on my arm. And see, if that's his story, see that confidence, there's an energy to that. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting, right? All of a sudden, she falls into his story. And now it's history. Stories. What's your story? What's your story? What's your story? We're so distracted now. There's so many other things to do, so many other things to watch, so many games to play, that when it really comes down to knowing who I am, being fully honest with myself and asking myself questions like this, what's my story? And then noticing my stories as I move. Some of us, we see things and the story is, I'll never have that. I'll never get that. And so you got to start noticing that's part of your story, because when you notice it's part of your story, that becomes the thing that you need to work on to transform. Because if you're a creator and you're saying, I'll never have that, you're actually creating the gap. You're widening the gap that will never get you there. Some of us, we live in the body that we have because that's our story. Well, everybody in my family we've always been a little bit overweight. We big boned it. This is how we eat. So you in that story. So then when somebody comes, well, you should do this, like it don't fit your story, you're like, well, that's easy for you to say. But over here, this is what we do. That's your story. What if your story was just, I will be as healthy as possible. I don't know how, but I will get there. What if your story was, see, other folks like, I ain't never been around love. Like, my parents weren't married and they always, they hit on each other and talk bad to each other. And I don't even know how to do that. So I don't even know if I'm going to be with somebody. I don't think I can ever really be with somebody. That ain't for me. But see, deep down inside, there's something missing. Like you want it so bad. And you're afraid to have it because you saw the pain that it caused for other people. And so you're afraid to tell yourself a story that you can have that. You can have love. You do deserve love. You do deserve connection. You do deserve passion. You do deserve family. You can have family. You can have love. And to even tell yourself that story, it's scary. It's scary. Again, remember, that's why we got to be honest with ourselves, because our fears are completely enveloped in our insecurities. And then our automatic way of being is how we defend that. So now a good man comes to you and says, oh, sister, how you doing? I saw you sitting here like, no, don't come up on me like that. Don't say nothing to me. All you're doing is recreating a story that you've been telling yourself. But you can see opportunity when you shift the story and say, well, maybe, just maybe this young man is the one I can experience connection, love, family with. Let's see what's possible. I started the show by saying my heart is heavy. My heart is heavy for our community because we have got to shift these stories. And then we perpetrate the story when we have our conversations. Well, you know how black folks be. No, I don't. Tell me how black folks be. And then what I'll tell you is I know why black folks be this way, because we haven't been given the opportunities. But just what if you gave yourself the opportunity? What if you transformed your story? How powerful could you be? How powerful could we be? Know your story. There's a quote here from the same book, Shambhala. And the author said, again, I think this is towards the end of the 6th chapter. In working with ourselves, cleaning up begins by telling the truth. In working with ourselves, cleaning up begins by telling the truth. We have to shed any hesitation about being honest with ourselves because it might be unpleasant. Before I got married, I had to take a real deep look at myself. One of the things I used to say is, I'll never be married. No, that ain't for me. So that was my story. So then how I created a relationship was aligned with that story. None of my relationships worked. None of them led to marriage. I mean, it makes sense. And when I began working with a coach, this is the beauty of coaching, you all, because coaches help you get to your truth, no matter how painful it may be. Began working with a coach. And let me be clear, too, for anyone listening, I'm not negating any matter of spirituality, any matter of salvation. I just know that many of us, we have that, but we don't have the knowledge. I just felt in my spirit I needed to say that. We don't have the knowledge Not only have we not read the whole good book, we don't read books. I'm just trying to share the knowledge. So I'm working with my coach. And let me say this too. One of the reasons I love coaching is because it's sourced and connected me spiritually. Before coaching, I was completely disenfranchised with religion, church, all of it. And it gave me that gift. And you know, the path is different for many people. And I just felt like my spirit just told me I needed to say that. So I'm working with my coach. And he asked me, Linal, what do you want in a relationship? And I had to really think about it. But like I felt in my soul, in my heart, like I wanted a family. I wanted to be a father one day. But I had been telling myself a story that wouldn't allow for that. It wouldn't allow for that because you can't trust women. You know, and that came from the hurt, from the past, the wounds. And you got to guard yourself. And guarding yourself means you don't become vulnerable enough in a relationship to even get to the point of marriage. And so I would guard myself. And so I told him, for the first time, I was honest with myself. And I said, I want a family. Even hearing myself say it felt surreal. I want a family. I just don't know how to get there. And that was the beginning, like telling that truth. Because I had never admitted that to myself. Like telling that truth. Did I feel good getting off that call? No, man, I felt like I had a ton of bricks in my stomach. I felt dissatisfied. But there's something about dissatisfaction that leads to change. There's something about feeling unsettled and uneasy that actually becomes a catalyst for change. Because now I can't shake this thing in my stomach. I can't shake this feeling of dissatisfaction. Because, for the first time, I admitted to myself that I actually wanted to be a family man. And I didn't have enjoyment in this so-called ladies' man, like turning over and wishing that the young lady was gone already. Like, why let her stay? Like I felt empty. And I realized the life I was living, I didn't really want to live that life. Like, I don't want to do this for another 10 years. So now I felt completely dissatisfied. But the beauty is I had told myself the truth. And in telling myself the truth, I was able to leverage that dissatisfaction and slowly begin to chip away at change. I was having this conversation Friday night with a couple other gentlemen. I walked into the place where we were. Guys were having a drink. Went to the Bulls game, and then I walked in. One of the guys says, "Oh, here goes L. Be careful with him. This guy here is completely faithful and true to his wife." Now, I'm okay with being introduced that way. But he was just telling the other guys, like, hey, he ain't going to talk like this, do like this. And he was right. One of the guys asked, he said, how you do it? How are you faithful to your wife? He was married. And I told him, I said, because I remember how unfulfilled I was when I had the life of multiple women. I remember how empty I was when I felt those things. I remember how spiritually disconnected I was, how little power and peace I had. And I never want to go back there. And so being true to my wife is not like an option. Like, I don't ever want to go back to that level of dissatisfaction. And see, that's the beauty of being honest with ourselves, because it creates personal transformation that is long lasting. Because now I get to operate in a brand new story. And I think this is part of the thing, right? Like being real. And real with yourself first and foremost, because I believe that's how then, once you do reach a certain level of transformation, you can reach other people. Because these same men in there who don't know how to be faithful, listen to every word I had to say. Because deep down inside, they want to be good husbands. Deep down inside, they want to be family men. Deep down inside, they don't want to spend every Friday night out like this. For me, that was a field trip. For them, this is life. For me, I get to go home to a loving wife and a beautiful family. For them, they get to go home to whatever they created based on their stories. They created it. This is the power of being honest with oneself. I felt dissatisfaction in that area of my life, relationship. But today, I get to feel an overwhelming sense of love, peace, and joy. Reinvention. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linal Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linal Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.